Okay, welcome back. This is the last lecture of Unit 1, the lecture in which we discussed drawing. Like I said before, in each unit, in each weekly unit, we'll talk about one art medium, and so obviously it makes sense to start with drawing. Drawing is often considered sort of the most fundamental art medium because drawing is, for many artists, where they start no matter what kind of artwork they will make. Like painters start with a drawing, sometimes very small, tiny thumbnail drawings, but sculptors start with drawings, animators start with drawings, typographers start with drawings, even sometimes ceramicists start with drawings, printmakers start with drawings. Just about any kind of art medium you can think about. There are artists who work with drawings, and drawing is a very initial beginning stage of them working on a body of work. So drawing it is logical to be the first art medium to talk about. And also it makes sense because we began this whole unit with the Paleolithic and the Neolithic. We began with cave paintings, and although they're called paintings, they probably would be better described as cave drawings. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. The other thing I want to say before we get too deep into this lecture is, you've probably already noticed this, but I just wanted to point this out, remind everyone of this fact, that with each of these lectures, the content that's on the slide, sometimes the things that are written, is not always exactly the same as what I am saying. And the content that's in your notes are also slightly different. All three of those things are designed to kind of complement each other but give slightly different information, so you're supposed to pay attention to all of them. That's one of the reasons why the notes are also available on Canvas, and why the PowerPoints as PDFs are also available for you to just look at, as well as to watch them as videos. So make sure to read everything and consider the intersection between those things. Okay, let's move on. And we're going to talk about, like I said before, we call cave paintings paintings, but they certainly weren't made with any kind of brush. Sometimes they were made in liquid forms of pigment like ochre, but a lot of times a lot of the pigment is put on in dry form, sometimes blown on, powdered on, sometimes like with burnt sticks, so it's charcoal in a stick form, or chalk in a stick form, or in rock form, that's kind of like with the red ochre clay. And so a lot of this work would have been, in a way, just like drawing, and a lot less like painting. So what makes a boundary of what is a drawing or what isn't a drawing? If we look at the Correggio on the right, everyone would agree that clearly is a drawing. But why? What are the qualities in it that make it a drawing? What defines what is or is not a drawing? Before we talk about line, I'm just going to go over just a little bit of a list to think about, for you to consider as we're going through the lecture. One definition of what is a drawing would be something that is fundamentally about line. But not every drawing, as we'll see, is that way. Another way would be to say drawing fundamentally is about works on paper. But then there are some kinds of paintings, like watercolor paintings, that always happen on, or almost always happen on paper. Another definition would be that that a drawing is often preparatory, meant to be done something to begin a work, and so is more a study than a finished piece. But then we have lots of very finished works of art that are drawings. So no one definition of drawing is perfect, but we'll consider many of them as we go through this lecture. So let's start talking about line. We've already been talking about line, and we talked about gesture and expression, but line's extremely important in drawing. Even when drawings are not purely linear and they have lots of tone to them, still the line is the foundation, it's the beginning for almost all drawings. And when students are learning to draw, thinking about line is very important. We often refer to line drawings as a type of thing, or contour line drawings as a type of work that students will do. And there's a very specific kind of exercise that students do called a blind contour line drawing, or a blind contour study, where they draw without looking at their piece of paper. They can only keep their eye on the object that they're drawing, and they can never look at the paper as they're drawing. And line quality is also extremely important in drawing. I discussed this very briefly in the last lecture, but line quality is the changes of line weight as well as other changes in the line's quality. So a line might get thinner or thicker, or might get lighter or darker, but it can also change in terms of being sharper or more feathery, or having one side edge be sharper than another, all kinds of, or more fluid or less fluid. Those line qualities can change from one place to another, and that really helps to make a drawing be more communicative. If you take a look at that John Byrne drawing of She-Hulk, you can really see how the fluid changes of line weight really help to make her form, right, feel more physical, right? When the line gets darker, it feels more like a shadow, and when the line is real thin, it feels light, like as if there's light on that surface, and it's a thin line because of that light. Another important part of line in drawing is something that is both maybe an exercise but also as a foundation for most people who draw, which is the idea of cross-contour line. It's the idea of imagining imaginary lines running over the surface of forms as a way to help you then understand the form. So that, like, if you looked at that pillow drawing by Albrecht Dürer, the imaginary lines, right, are the lines that help the draftsman understand the shifting of the surface of the form of those pillows. And lastly, in this part of the lecture, I want to talk just a little bit about the difference between line drawing and a tonal drawing. So we already said that many people would say that the definition of drawing is that it starts with a line, that it's primarily linear. But in the two drawings on the right, which everyone would clearly think were drawings, they are mostly tonal. You can see, especially in the Proudhon, you can see that the starting point of the drawing was linear, that there was a line drawing that then was the value was kind of worked into the line drawing, but still the finished result is so tonal and so much about value and not about line that you wouldn't ever call it a line drawing. But yet we still call these drawings. Another definition a lot of people would use is to say that a drawing is made with dry materials, but then we're going to come across some exceptions to that rule as well. Okay, so this ends part one. In a little bit I'll get to part